Hey, everybody, welcome back to another Precision Rifle Media. Another episode of Precision Rifle Media, anyway. After troubleshooting some technical difficulties there, we're ready to record with Rich Hall from Fulton Armory. This is going to be kind of another interesting show, a little bit off of the maybe beaten path of what Precision Rifle Media has done in the past. We're going to be talking about old guns and um, shooting disciplines other than PRS. Uh, with that, I think it'd be a good time. Rich Hall is with Fulton Armory, but I'm going to let him introduce himself, a little bit about who he is and what Fulton Armory is and his role there. Um, Rich, you wanna introduce yourself a little bit about who you are and where you come from and how you got to where you are?
Well, hi, my name is Rich Hall. Been here at Fulton now, see, a little over 21 years here at the shop. Prior to that, I was a Marine Corps armor for 4 years, 98 to 2002. Uh, couldn't find a normal job, uh, so I ended up here, and it's been a long, long road. A good road, a bad road, just like any other. But we're here. Had a lot of changes in the past couple years, but looking to continue on and push our wares and show the world what we're capable of.
Awesome. So, where did you start in Fulton? What's Fulton Armory's background? What's the deal there?
Well, this started back in the 80s. Pretty interesting story actually from Clint McKee. Started this. He was a salesman for a armored limousine company that provided armored limousines to foreign dignitaries. So he traveled all over the world, actually selling these bulletproof limousines to people that could get shot at.
Yeah.
So through that, there was a lot of research done for the armor, what it could handle. Of course, testing was done, and he met up with the former owner of Arms Corps, um, uh, through mutual people of, who do I go to find, to do some of this testing, and met up with him, and they struck up conversation about different types of business ventures for military surplus. So this was back in the 80s, and there was a lot of there was M14 kits coming in from Israel, and so that's kind of how it started. I mean, Clint was a hell of a businessman, just unbelievably had a knack for it, and he saw this opportunity talking to this other guy about about research, and he's like, well, I want a piece of this action. This sounds really good. So he started with a I think the story went, he started with 100 complete Israeli M14 kits, parts kits. So everything minus the receiver and the full auto only parts. And he took those to Camp Perry. That's where it all began, in his minivan in the parking lot, and he didn't even have a building, a booth, nothing. But they allowed him to do it out of the minivan. Sold all 100 parts kits very quickly, and then he realized, hey, I might be onto something here,
Hmm.
and bought more parts kits, and then it turned into this. 30, let's see, 36 years almost. Next week actually be 36 years.
Huh.
uh, and
Crazy.
then and then from there, it just he was a business minded guy. He looked for these opportunities, and he found them, and he worked really, really hard, long hours, a lot of sacrifices, and kind of built this mini empire, if you will, within this niche market. Is what we are, very small, very focused on gas guns, with a lot of emphasis on the M14, uh, but the other gas guns as well. So um, he passed about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and and now here we are, continuing this legacy that he built, over 30 some years. Um,
Yeah.
and
So Fulton. So what's your role at Fulton Armory?
Well, I came here a fresh out of the Marine Corps, 2111. I was an armor for 4 years. came out of there, wanting to get paid to work on guns. Like so many want to do, or think they want to do, and came here, and started out actually just parkerizing, bead blasting I bead blasted a barrel and dipped it into the park tank, and I was like, is this what I signed up for? This isn't building guns, like happens to so many others that think they want to do this. You got to start at the bottom. And so I started doing that, and then it was a huge changeover from the military, coming onto the civilian side of building guns, or repairing guns, or any aspect of it. And I think I kind of mentioned it times we talked before. It's a whole lot different, when you got to pay for things.
Yeah.
It's when something breaks, you don't go to a parts bin and pull something out and replace it. It's you do, but you got to pay for it.
Yeah.
And every other little pin and spring along the way. So that's the big difference. And I learned that real quick, coming here, and it was like, when you screw up, that costs money, by the way. Screw up enough and it's going to cost you money.
Yeah. Right.
So a different world, completely from the military. And just started with ARs. I mean, that's kind of why I came here, was the ARs were really taking off in service rifle, and generating a lot of interest, a lot of guys changing over to that still in the early, this was 2002.
Well, and they had just kind of in the early, well, were they still banned then? When did the ban lift?
So 2004 September,
Yeah.
is when the Clinton ban sunsetted. It was only a 10-year law. It was very, very odd, how that worked out. So being in this business prior to that was a whole lot different, with we still have some of these kind of oddities with plain muzzle barrels, no bayonet lug, collapsible stocks that were fixed in place, that were pinned in place, so
Oh,
they
sure.
couldn't actually collapse. And that's all we could do back then. And there wasn't 300 other AR manufacturers back then. It was Bushmaster, Colt, Armalite was around. DPMS was kind of the new guy at
Yeah.
that time. And we did a lot of projects with them, and kind of piggybacked with some of their things. Clint had a very good relationship with them, so they were definitely instrumental. Randy Luth was instrumental in getting us into the AR market, just
Yeah.
by having those early connections.
They were based in Minnesota, up by St.
Yes. Yep, they were in Becker, Minnesota, to begin with. A very
Yeah,
small town, from up there. I'm actually from northern Minnesota
Oh,
originally.
really? Yeah.
Yeah, originally. So
I've been back
I
there
knew that.
several times.
Yeah. So that's kind of, I mean, that they were instrumental in starting that, and providing these parts. You got to remember, there wasn't all these sources and machine shops that specialized in, these job shops that specialize only in making AR parts. I mean, there's tons of them now. That's all they do. At least there was, when the demand was real heavy.
Mhm.
So this was kind of, before a lot of that started. And then, kind of right away, one of the first things I started doing was gun shows, just for the shop, just for like a little bit of side money, doing shows. And that really helped me, I think, connect with people, and start becoming a salesman, which everyone that works here is a salesman first. In the Marine Corps, it was your rifleman first. Here is you're a salesman, salesperson first, first and foremost. Because if you don't sell stuff, you don't get a paycheck. So it's
Yeah.
pretty simple concept. So started with that, and that was really good for me to talk, meet a lot of people, at these gun shows. I worked with some kind of pro gun political type stuff for a while, so I got to meet some very nice, some very good people that helped me out along the way.
Sure.
That I'm still connected with. So from there, in 2004, things really changed in September, and it was kind of, watching the clock, like, okay, as soon as I don't remember what day exactly it was. It's like, so 1 minute you're doing plain muzzles, and the next minute, you got threaded barrels, collapsible stocks, bayonet lugs, just like that. And there wasn't, a lot of anticipation because there just wasn't a lot of parts and availability back then. It was just a whole lot different. It was, relatively new in the sense, or compared to the scope of the way things are now in the AR market entirely. So
Yeah.
not just
Well,
service rifle or match rifle, but in its entirety, it was a whole lot different.
yeah, because all the pre-ban, that was always a big deal, right?
Sure.
Pre-ban
Yeah.
AR, pre-ban AK,
Pre-bans.
pre-ban SKS, and
Yeah.
now and then you still see that, right? You see like, oh, this is a pre-ban. It's like, so.
Right, right. What does that even mean? That doesn't mean anything. I don't think it means anything to anyone. In some states, it does.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it used to be a selling point, right?
Sure.
And then like in 2010, do whatever years, back then it was like, some of the old timers that were through it, right? They
Uh-huh.
thought it was still like kind of a premium, it seemed, right? Like
Sure.
this is a pre-ban, it's worth more.
Uh-huh. And some of them were, and we still see a little bit of that, but not. It's pretty much irrelevant at this point. With
Yeah.
the other states that had those type of laws, it's a whole lot worse now. So that would be easy stuff compared to how complicated it gets now, and keeping up with. What can we send to this state, to this locality, this jurisdiction has this law and that law, and it's very complicated to keep up with.
Yeah.
Just the local ordinances, and they're the super fine print that you almost have to hire someone to look into those type of things. So yeah,
Right.
it's arduous. There's no question about it.
Yeah. I don't know, that whole pre-ban thing. I remember that being a big deal, and just, yeah, it's like anything. There's some of them that are worth more because there's something special
Sure,
about them, right?
sure.
This is a whatever, something special, but most of them it was just another AR.
Yeah, and if I explain to how the current law here in Maryland works in regards to what constitutes an assault weapon, so that the answer to that is the diameter of the barrel. So in Maryland, back in 19, I want to say this was 1994, 95, somewhere around there, these guys that shot high power went before, in one of these hearings, and testified to say, well, we're just using ours for competition. We go to these, high power competitions, their target guns. They wanted an exemption from the state law, and they got it in the form of it's saying, everything's banned except Colt, Sport, or H bars, by name, actually by name in the state laws. It said that. So it made this loophole, and then that loophole kind of changed to whoever makes an H bar. Okay, well, what's an H bar? Does it have to be stamped on the barrel? Well, yes, it should. Is it a registered trademark? There's all these things that came up. These
Hmm.
complications where, and when you look at it and you compare it side by side, and I had to do this at gun shows, and I would try to explain to people the difference between a gun they had to go through a waiting period, do all this additional state paperwork, background checks, all these separate things, because the barrel was slightly thinner than another one, and they just look at me like, come on, like
Yeah.
you're just making this up. No, no one would be that ridiculous, but yeah, it is that ridiculous.
It
And
always is, right? All
it,
those
it
laws
is
are weird.
right, right.
It's like the California compliant, like hand guard fin things.
Oh yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I'm talking about?
Yep,
It's not a pistol grip anymore because it's got that
sure.
little fin.
Yep, the fins, we went through the bullet button phase
Oh, that's right.
for a while. That was a lot of fun, especially with the M14. The bullet button for that was a lot of fun. Uh, and thank God we're past some of those things, but it does create a lot of learning experiences that you go through, having to be in compliance. It's a lot of work to be in compliance, and I think that without us going on to more political things, but I think
Yeah.
making it much harder to comply is a form of gun control. Certainly with in regards to manufacturers, having to know these intricacies in order to follow the law, before you can even make something or even
Yeah.
plan to manufacture a product. You got to make sure you're within compliance. So just a lot of extra steps, and those extra steps deter a lot of new ventures, new companies, at least here in Maryland.
Yeah.
You know, and we catch we catch some hell, and just recently social media, which is so toxic. And that's another one we won't go into a
No.
whole lot, but just even recently, just like had guys get very upset about us welding mags, the floor plates on magazines that we blocked. So we took 20 round M14 mags, blocked them to 10 rounds for people that can't have them in their state, and we TIG welded them shut, so they can't be taken apart. We actually took it even further to make sure that no one could just take the plate off and take the block out of there. So these are all things that and people caught like started kind of name calling us online, and I'm like, I'm kind of I've been around this stuff before, but I'm like, you're really mad at us for helping out these people, including us. It's like, well, we're in a banned state. Like, you want to hate on people, but we're one of those people too, that live in a place like that, for better or for worse, and they're like, oh, just you should just move. Like, okay, that's an option. We didn't think of that one.
Yeah.
So
You guys just
it's
move
interesting.
locations, kind of, right? But like to pick up and move like state lines, right?
Oh,
Like
sure.
where I work right now, if they were like, all right, you have to work in Minnesota now, I'd be like, yeah, you have to find somebody else, and I'll go
Right.
work over there now.
Right, and people have families, and in places, and it's not so simple. I kind of, we all kind of wish it was sometimes, but um, staying here and offering something to people that stay as well, and staying in compliance. I mean, in a way, to me, it seems like it says something about us. We're determined,
Yeah.
to get through these things, and leave it up to the market to become innovative and find ways around this. And not just that, but just with this particular thing, the reason we did it, to like, well, why wouldn't you just use a 10 round magazine? Well, a 10 round mag on an M14 is difficult to load. It's short. And because an M14, you don't just, push the mag doesn't lock straight into the mag well like an AR. You actually tilt it forward and pull it back to lock it in. Uh, having that movement is much easier with a longer magazine. You get more leverage on it. It's easier to load and unload from the rifle. So it kind of, that was the main purpose it served. You also couldn't get 10 round mags. Checkmate's it. They were it, and they moved. They moved out of New York, I believe, and I forget which state they moved to. So there was this big shortage of these 10 round mags. Well, you're talking about, and this may not even sound that important, and it's not if you're not affected by that in one of these states. But California, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, you start looking at those states that need those mags. There's a lot of people in those states.
Yeah.
So it's a large customer base that needs to have these things. So yeah, we're gonna try to satisfy that market demand for that, and make it a better product that's easier to use.
Right. Right.
So I was a
So
little taken aback by that, but that's social media for you.
yeah. Well, don't get in a small submarine made out of a propane tank, and
Right.
let's not even get started on tuners.
No.
Um, so let's get back into the bread and butter of
Sure.
Fulton Armory. So you guys have some cool like surplus stuff too, right? Like grenade sights and stuff, which is cool.
Yeah.
Uh, but also like kind of your deal, I believe, is more of like the Camp Perry type stuff, like and if you could break that down, service rifle, is that what it would be? I mean, we're outside of my wheelhouse here in
Sure.
competitive shooting.
Yeah.
I know I just recently talked about this on a different show, but like USPSA, PRS, like that was my jump.
Sure.
So like when we start talking about some of the different disciplines, I don't necessarily know what's going on, right?
Mhm. So when we talk about this, I always refer to CMP. The CMP are the ones, CMP games and service rifle. that's going to be that group that we cater to, or with these gas guns. So you have your service rifle ARs, that are very similar. They have to be to follow the rules, the CMP rules. But then we get into the games where the M1 Carbine, the M1 Garand, the M14 doesn't really have its own match, which, hint, hint, we need to have something like that that's more sanctioned for that rifle.
Do, do they use the M1 carbine?
Oh, the carbine match is huge.
Is it really?
Oh yeah, that gun is very, it was never meant to do what we're trying to make it do, and it fights us hard. And I've put in testing into this for years and years, and testing as far as measuring actual gas pressure at the piston, with probes and all kinds of stuff.
How much pressure is there?
I don't remember the gas port pressure, to be honest, what we measured. We were looking more for, when we were doing that, we were trying to look for correlation between pressures and velocities, and make sure that they were the same, and that they corresponded to shots going high, flyers, that sort of thing. When we were doing a lot with trying to just figure out ways to make this gun do what it wasn't intended to do. Go ahead.
When you shoot those things and you're shooting them for accuracy like that, like the only 30 carbines I've ever shot right there, or M1 carbine, whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
they're round bullet, like the old 45 bullets, right? Just round nose, brass, just whatever, surplus stuff. When you load it for that, are you shooting like flat base, like a little bit more aerodynamic type bullets, or are you shooting a big round bullet like that?
No, same bullet.
Really?
There's not a lot of choices. I mean, we're very limited with this gun, and I think that's some of the appeal to it, because these are guys. A lot of these guys that shoot these games, they're high masters. They've been there, done that. They're looking for the next discipline to master, and that's what a lot of them. We got a couple of them. One of them in particular, Vic Betzold. He is. I couldn't tell you how many times he's won the carbine and the Garand match. He's a machine. And that's who I kind of got connected with and started doing a lot of this testing, but we're still limited to, bullets and primers and powders. And, there's not a lot of things you can do. And we tried a lot of different things. There's a lot of old information on how to accurize one of those rifles. And some of it works. Sometimes finding consistent methods of accurizing some of these guns can be very difficult and time consuming. Eliminating variables, one at a time. It takes time, and it's not easy, to get good data off of that. So.
Yeah. Can you hand load ammunition for it?
Oh, sure.
So you could. So like, if somebody were to make some kind of a special bullet or whatever, mm-hmm. right? Something that worked better, more consistent or something. The
main thing with this, with the carbine was, as far as I'm aware of anyway, and I'm sure there'll be some people say I'm wrong, but all the data is based off of original military ammunition, which we come to find is it's pretty hot. But there was nothing else to really go by. It was a military round. It was never used really for any other reason. Back in the 80s, I think they chambered it in some of those oddball. The AMT used it in an auto mag. There was some odd, some more kind of odd guns that were chambered with that round, but nothing else. There was no.
There were some revolvers, right?
Yeah, I believe there's a revolver. The auto mag is the one that comes to mind.
There was like a Blackhawk or something they made in 30 carbine.
Sure. So there was, and it was kind of a novelty, and it still kind of is in a way, but it was more obscure than there wasn't. I don't know if you've seen what these carbines go for now, but rewind 20, especially 30 years, you couldn't give them away. You'd go into surplus stores. I remember seeing it as a kid. I think it was Glenn's Army Navy surplus. Going in there and seeing carbines and Garands in plastic barrels, thrown in there like shovels, and they were like $80 or something.
Yeah, well, that's like the Mosin Nagant, right? They used to be like $80.
Sure. Right, and the SKS and all those
SKS was
surplus
cheap.
guns.
Yeah,
Right.
and even the K31 Swiss, right? That's a rifle that I'm still on the lookout, right? I mean, I could just go buy one, but I'm looking for the one that
The
speaks to
one,
me, if
the
you will.
one.
Um, right time, right price, right everything,
Mhm.
And but man, they used to be like, I don't know, $300. They're like $1,000 now.
Yeah. Yeah, and carbines maybe more than any other surplus gun. If we want to look at values even 20 years ago compared to now. I mean, now they're real clean GI gun. We'll say that's not beat too bad. They're 2 grand plus. Maybe even more. Maybe 3 grand for one that's even mostly correct with an original finish. It hasn't been that was never Arsenal rebuilt. They're just getting fewer and fewer, to find, harder to know what it actually is, or it's being passed off as something else. So once you get into values like that, it's really important. The details really matter when we're talking about a $3,000 gun that looks like it's a $50 gun. By appearance, if you don't know about them. So, but
Told
as
you about
far,
that. I told you about that one that we used to shoot all the time. Had like a custom made wood stock.
oh yeah,
Like an AK, like the dongle or whatever they call it.
yeah, yeah. You wouldn't believe some of the stuff that comes in here. I mean, we've had carbines with full Mannlicher stocks with fancy, inlays in them and weird scope mounts. The
Yeah.
gunsmiths, when these guns were cheap, a lot of times they were used just like O3s and Garands as well, were sporterized. Because no one cared about them as a military relic. It was still
Mhm.
too fresh, right? It wasn't, it hadn't been enough time for it to gain popularity as a relic or as a collectible. It just wasn't there yet. So gunsmiths would take them; they were cheap, and guys would do all kinds of weird things. So
Weird.
Monte Carlo stocks, just some really odd stuff. I wish I had some pictures of it to show you.
Yeah,
Uh,
this one was like chrome plated and had like
yeah.
a AK dongle built onto the front of the stock,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know, it was all goofy, it was super goofy.
We still see those. They're still around. I like seeing them because it shows some ingenuity, that
This thing
these
was
guys
actually
seem to
made
do.
pretty well, the stock
Yeah.
and stuff. It
Oh,
was all,
some of them are very well done. Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. The M1 carbine was always just kind of a goofy little cartridge to me, or a goofy little rifle. I don't know. They're fun
It
to
is.
shoot though.
Yeah, they're a whole lot of fun to shoot. They're good starter guns for women, small frame people, kids, that sort of thing. Very low recoil.
It
Uh,
seems to like when the AK-74s, the what is it? What do they shoot? 545 by 39.
yeah.
You remember what was it 10, 15 years ago? You could buy a case for like $100,
Yeah.
case of ammo. I mean, it was dirt cheap.
Yeah.
It might be corrosive, but like you can get it so cheap, who cares, right?
Cheers. Right. Spray some Windex on it and forget about it.
Exactly. That was just crazy, and then but now you can't get that anymore, right? So it's
Right. It's an odd supply and demand market that spikes for whatever reason. It may spike and then you can't get it, or the price goes through the roof if you can get it. Carbine ammo is no different. Now, most of that is from ammunition manufacturers focusing on other calibers that they either, and my guess is mostly they're contracted. That's guaranteed money. And of course, that's what they're going to load. They're not going to
make
focus on an
all
obscure
this
part.
make all the 6.5 Creedmoor that you can.
Sure, sure. Are all the whatever it is other than 30 carbine, which is popular, but not at nowhere near the level of those guns.
No.
So I think that's why we see the shortages. They just don't load that much of it, or they only do one run a year, or whatever it might be. You just don't see it, and the price on it it's ridiculous if
What
you look at it.
real quick, so we're
Mhm.
getting into
Sure.
the weeds of
Oh yeah, that's easy
surplus,
to
but
do.
real quick, what happened? Did you see that? What company was it? They found like 1.5 million carbines like in Africa.
That was, I believe, Royal Tiger
Yep,
Imports
that sounds right.
are the ones that got those guns and brought them in. We've seen a lot of them, a whole lot of those guns. They're very odd. They are either really, really nice guns, or they're just complete junk,
Really?
for lack of better terms. Yeah, and every kind. they're kind of, from what we've seen here in the shop, they're kind of one way or another. We did have one a couple months ago that came through. It was a really nice Winchester and just about all correct, mint condition, beautiful gun. I would probably say 4,000 plus. I don't know. I'm not a collector. I don't claim to be, so I don't keep up with those markets as much as others. But very, very expensive, rare, collectible gun, except for the big, ugly import stamp on the side of the barrel. And that's very sad, obviously, to see that. If you're a collector, if you just want a really nice carbine, then who cares? So we've seen a lot of those come through. They're interesting, and I appreciate anyone bringing in thousands of beat up guns.
Yeah.
Very, very much. Keep doing it.
Yeah. So let's talk about CMP stuff and kind of the bread and butter here. So do you sell mostly parts? Do you sell guns? Do you sell
we
mostly work?
we do it all. We do it all, honestly. Parts, accessories, gauges, tools, uh, fresh builds, uh, basic and inspections, and everything else in between. We try to cover as much of it as possible. There's certain things we don't get into. We don't sell ammo. We did. We were a Hornady and Black Hills distributor for years, and then the internet kind of killed that for for a small company like us to sell ammo. So, but a lot of service. So there's not a lot of really not a lot of gunsmiths or armorers out there that specialize in these guns. For one, talking to guys that went to school, maybe it's changed some now, but typically they weren't trained on these military rifles in the gunsmith schools. Not a whole lot anyway. So we do see a lot of we get a lot of gunsmiths that send guns to us that their customers drop off with them, and they just end up sending them to us. And a lot of it has to do with the special tools and gauges and the techniques that are used to service them. They just don't have it. So some try. They create a little more work for us, but that's okay too. So yeah, I mean, I like to focus more these days on service,
Sure.
on taking these old, crusty, beat up guns, the guns from Ethiopia. I mean, they're caked in this whatever red dirt they have over there. I mean, it's everywhere on these guns. It's super fine dust. It gets everywhere. And that's a kind of a dead giveaway on those guns. But taking those, and putting them in a sonic cleaner and getting them completely clean, inspecting them, gauging them, treating them like everything else. Everything that comes in here gets treated exactly the same. Fine tooth comb from butt to muzzle, everything on it. And then we make a long list. I'm still writing things on a piece of paper, because I tried with a computer, and it just doesn't seem right to inspect the gun and then type a bunch of stuff on a screen. So
Right.
still use I did have a form made that I use now, so at least I'm not on a legal pad like I was for many years. Just making notes, because when you're inspecting something, like I'm not going to stop and my hands are covered with dirt and grease and try to wipe my hands off and then type notes. I'm grabbing a pen and jotting this stuff down. Then when I'm done, we'll compile everything, and go over all these details, the gauging reports, all that. And then we're going to call the customer and say, okay, here's what you got. Here's what we found. And we do call them. There's no, emailing and, here's what you got. You need this. This is how much it's going to cost. Try to do this. And this is another big focus. What I'm getting to here is customer service, where I find it extremely lacking in the industry as a whole. And a lot of that has to do with time management. I understand that with companies, but so many times, we talk to people, that we're working on something of theirs and spend, just a few minutes with them, and they're just blown away that we're giving them that time and answering their questions and being nice about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a real tough one to find. I call it gun guy ego. We don't do that here, and I think it's paid off that we're not that way with our customers, and just giving people that time. And it, I can't tell you how important it is, and how many people have told me how important it is. And the reason I came to you guys is, I heard your customer service is second to none. Uh, and your work is good too. But you got to get people to you before you can work on their on their gun.
Right.
They call up and, hey, I want to send this in. Uh, that's where it all starts, right there, and that communication and giving them the time is vital. There's nothing more important than that communication and that level of customer service. Otherwise, you never get a chance to make any money.
Right. I think so are you with the PRS game at all or no?
No,
I think we should try and get an M14 into the PRS.
I've talked to a few guys and offered to get them in to get into it somehow. I don't know what level, but I haven't had any takers, and I couldn't see it competing really. But just like there's guys still using M14s to shoot service rifle. They're not going to win against these ARs, but they're still doing it because they can compete with them. But the recoil, that's kind of the what ends that between the two. But I think there's guys that just want to do something different. They're bored, and I see a lot of boredom in the industry with the vanilla ARs. I think so many people they're tired of it. It's boring. They've gone back to retro guns are huge. They still are. That's another another thing we do is the retro AR market. We've done it for a long, long time. And I think talking with guys, they're just bored with the usual stuff. So I think maybe that could happen. If someone in PRS wanted to just be that different guy out there, I would be all up for it. If someone wants to try it, we got it in 6.5. It's a fantastic platform for the 6.5. The gas system alone, much more forgiving than the AR, than the direct impingement gas system. And we saw that right away. We actually had a 6.5 14 a year before Springfield did. We did it
Really?
with Criterion. Oh yeah. That we didn't wait on that one. We had one of the first 6.5. We had the first 6.5 AR barrel from Krieger that Krieger made. They actually delivered to Camp Perry, and we built the gun at Camp Perry and put it on display. So it's kind of cool to do that. But yeah, no, we don't get the pressure issues with the M14 gas system that we do with the AR. So no reduced firing pin tips like we see on the AR platform. We just don't see that with the 14.
What's the biggest thing that makes an M14 more accurate?
For me, it's barrels going to a medium weight barrel from a standard weight barrel. I've shot, or we've built plenty of regular. When I say regular, meaning military profile barreled guns that shot well until they get hot, of course. But that's what I see whenever we're talking about accurizing a 14 and a guy really wants one to shoot. Like, well, we got to go to a medium weight barrel to start with. And then we get into national match gas system, a unitized gas system where you're TIG welding the front band to the gas cylinder. Then we get into the spring guide, a heavier spring guide rather than this flat piece of stamped steel that's on a GI gun. A trigger job. So the trigger job is huge. It doesn't make your rifle any more accurate. It makes you shoot it more accurately.
Yeah, I imagine that's not like the ARs. You just buy a trigger, a couple pins, done.
Yeah, it depends really. Some triggers aren't really that bad to begin with, but yeah, it's we're removing material with the stone, a lot of polishing, changing out springs. I like doing triggers. It's always been something I kind of still enjoy doing it because it's very gratifying when you go from this long 10-pound gritty, tons of creep, tons of sear engagement, and then when you're done with it, it's just silk. by going through the process. And it's the one thing that you can hand, and we do this at Camp Perry, doing it this year, by the way, doing trigger jobs. And so a guy brings it to you, he knows how terrible it is, and he hands it to you, and, half hour later, you can hand it back to him, and it's just night and day different.
Yeah.
And he knows right then, like, he's going to pick some points up with this, and it's $85 or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's instantaneous, and it works, and it allows you to shoot your rifle more to its potential by having more trigger control. So that's vital too. Stock fit, like most other guns. A lot of these principles are the same as they are on other rifles. We can't free float an M14 really, at least not on a conventional stock, but we can create front end tension, which is semi free floating it, where the lip on the front band is latched on the bottom of the front of the stock, on the ferrule on the front of the stock. So controlling that tension, making that barrel have that upward tension to pull up away from the stock, and stay consistent. That's vital, extremely vital, and consistently accurate M14s. And a lot of that's done through epoxy bedding, shimming, aluminum chassis. There's different ways to achieve that, just like on other rifles. But getting it just right can be a little more complicated because it's not free floated. But we're working on that too. We got some really cool stuff coming up here this year that should be that we're really excited about, and we'll get. I'm not going to talk about that much until it's for sale.
Sure. Yeah, don't let the cat out of the bag too early.
Yeah.
What about like the 1903 Springfields and stuff? Do you guys do any of that?
Don't do any bolt guns. If I could turn the clock back, I would have started working on them, years ago. But they're just a whole different animal with those guns, and not just mechanically. As a business decision, honestly, there's no money in them. They were never very expensive guns compared to a Garand or a carbine or a 14. So that was, one of the reasons we didn't want to mess with them. There just really wasn't much of a market with them. That changed obviously, and there's way less people that work on them, I would say, and the parts are some of the parts can be very hard to find as well. So that's a tough rifle, especially to start on now. I mean, I'm too old to learn something new like that. So no, and we get asked about it a whole lot, because most people that have a Garand and a carbine, they have a M1A and a 03, and that's these guns complement each other very, very well. So and it works out, from a business model, it's great, because there's a good chance that guy that has that carbine has a Garand and has a 14, or you can help him to get one.
Yeah, and a 1911 and a
right, and we make recommendations for things that we don't have as well. We have some partners that we don't necessarily work with, but that we can point people in the right direction for those things. So yeah, a lot of complementing each other with those guns, and it's good. And from a business standpoint, there's a lot to doing this, that's business related too, and of course a lot of people aren't going to understand, why don't you guys do this? Well, we would love to do it, but we can't lose money, and offer the service at the same time. So some things that may sound great or easy just are much more difficult and complicated as a business.
That's kind of how everything's going, right? Like the stuff that's like I would consider to be like more fun, right? Isn't the stuff that's worth doing, like rebuilding transmissions, right? There's people that do it, right? But for the most part, you pull a transmission and you get the remand and you slap it in. The remand's got a warranty from the factory, from the people that just do the transmissions,
Right. Yeah, you gotta make a decision about, are you gonna make the business thrive and grow, or are you gonna do really cool stuff that's fun? And sometimes you don't get to do the really cool stuff that's fun. Sometimes you just got to do a shitload of trigger jobs. Sorry. um, and that's just how it goes sometimes. So, uh,
So if somebody has like a M14 or whatever, I imagine the service rates are kind of similar, right? They're all fairly similar designs, uh, roughly, right? I mean, but what's it cost? You got a okay gun that comes in, and the guy says, "I want to go shoot a national match with it."
well, everything starts with a tech inspection. So every rifle that comes through here has to be inspected. And we get brand new guns that come in here from Springfield in the box. The guy never even shoots it. He sends it directly here. Um, don't really understand that completely, but but they're treated the same. And it's like, well, why do you have to inspect it? It's brand new. So we used to have a joke around here, but it's brand new. Why
Yeah.
why are you going to charge me to inspect it? And it's because we're the ones in the end, we're the ones accepting that liability. We're the ones signing off on it, saying this thing is solid, it's good to go. It's not going to kill you, and it's going to perform. And that's vital. And we don't know that. We don't assume because something's brand new doesn't necessarily mean it's what we would call new and up to our standards.
Yeah.
So we start with that and go through it completely. Then, like I said, we do that phone call and come up with that build plan, and execute from there, whatever type of build it might be. Anything from once in a while we get a gun that's really nice that doesn't need a lot of work. Maybe the guy bought it, just wants it inspected, to be safe. And there's plenty of guys that do. That's a very smart thing to do, especially when you're buying stuff from gun shows, off Gun Broker. There's no returns. You don't know what you're getting.
Well, you got how many years worth of who knows what's
Sure,
happened to it. You know what I mean?
sure,
Let's think
sure.
about some of these guns, right? They're 50, 60, 80, 100 years old
Mhm,
at this
mhm.
point, and who knows who shot what through it or
Sure.
where it sat for 10 years. Or, I mean, that's a long time for the life of a gun to.
Oh, I've had guys sending guns that sat for 30 plus that have been sitting in a safe. It was their grandfather's or something that got literally shoved to the back of the safe and forgotten about until that person passes, and then that gun moves on to the next family member. And we get
Mhm.
guns in here like that are stuff from the States, things of that nature. Uh, but it all gets treated the same regardless. So we can look at it. If it looks like it is 80 years old and has lived a very hard life, that it's not getting any different treatment than that brand new M1A in a box. It's just
Sure.
it's consistency, and that's key to making sure they're consistent after they leave here.
Yeah.
Treating everything the same. Everything goes through that same. Geez, I think we got a 3-page checklist on just the inspection
Hmm.
that we go through on each individual rifle. And that, I think, is how we keep just streamlining that process of keeping it the same every time. We can keep a lot of attention to detail with those inspections without it taking hours and hours of time. And then let the customer decide what to do from there. And we get guys that either it becomes cost prohibitive. It's just too much money. And a lot of times that can be the
Yeah.
case when you get into some of these.
I mean, what would you say is like a fair gun to get it to like match quality? You got one sitting in the safe. It's in
Mhm.
good shape.
Um, for Garands, we do so many of them. I'll use that as an example because we do so many of them. When they come in and they're, let's say, average condition, and by average I mean pretty beat. They need a barrel, they need wood, they need a stock and handguards. The metal needs refinished. Uh, to redo that, to restore a rifle like that to what is our service grade standards, that typically ends up being 11 to 1300 to go all out, to do a wood repark and a new barrel. And then usually it's going to need, at minimum, some springs, some pins. There's certain, all the rifles have certain parts on them that are high wear.
Hmm.
So I can, almost for sure they're going to need an elevation knob on a Garand. I mean, the little tooth on the drum it wears out rapidly. It'll wear the receiver out as well. So hopefully it wears just the tooth itself. So stuff like that. Uh, there's certain springs that were maybe never correct, in my opinion. The clip latch spring on an M1, we have to put a heavier version in there, or it starts popping clips out before all the rounds are fired off. Things like that. We're pretty sure, it's going to need that, but we're not going to assume. We're still going to go through and check all those checkpoints and make sure that it's either good or bad, and make a recommendation from there.
That doesn't seem terribly priced though, like 13, 14 for a barrel and the whole 9 yards.
I mean, depending on who you ask. Now things have changed a lot. The main source of Garands.
I mean, is that just service, or is that the barrel too?
No, that's parts too.
That seems reasonable to me. I mean,
well, when they cost, the prices they're crazy right now on some of these guns. When you go on, if you go online and look at Gun Broker or some of the more common stuff, when you look at those prices, what the worst case is when a guy buys it, say off a Gun Broker. Say we'll use them as an example to pick on them, and it's say he pays $1,500 for a Garand, right? And he gets it, and maybe something, it doesn't. He takes it out and shoots it, and something goes wrong. It misfeeds some. You pick your malfunction. So he messes with it. He puts a new op rod spring in it because the op rod spring fixes everything. Never. And then it doesn't work. He may throw a few more parts at it, or ask, go on a forum and get some advice, and then in the end, a lot of times it'll end up with us. And then and then we don't usually, we don't know what he paid for it, but sometimes I may ask if the guy is, I try to feel out through the conversation, did this come from his grandfather's safe that was in the back of the safe, and maybe he inherited it and didn't pay anything for it. That's best case financial situation for that customer. He has nothing in it. So when I tell him $1,200, to do a complete restoration on this rifle, that's a lot easier sell than he just paid $1,500 for it on Gun Broker, and it needs another $1,200 worth of work. So then it's a $2,700 Garand. That's when it becomes, less of a comfortable conversation.
But I mean, like on the guns, like what we shoot for PRS, to rebarrel one, talk $500 for a barrel, another it's $1,000 just for a rebarrel. Right. I mean, rough numbers, right? But so to have the whole thing for like 13, that seems reasonable to me, anyway.
Yeah, I mean the barrels, we're pretty much exclusive now with Criterion. Another great, fantastic company. I can't say enough good things about them. We've been with them since their beginnings, when they were still part of Krieger, actually, and worked with them with these gas guns. I mean, we still do work with them very closely. Fantastic company. Steve and Stephanie and them, they're great. And
and they kind of started the whole Remage thing too, right?
They did with the vintage guns with the Garand, the M14, and the Carbine, and it's, I don't know what we do without that, and they're good barrels. They're very good barrels. I've seen those barrels shoot as good as anything else on the market at any price. So that makes it. That's a big part of it. The Boyd's stocks makes our stocks.
Oh, sure. They're only like an hour away from me.
Yeah. That's right. They're in South Dakota. So that's another key part of it. We've had a lot of input on those stocks too. Stock fit is vital to squeeze an accuracy out of these guns, especially if we're not, there's no aluminum. There's no aluminum in these. There's no bedding blocks. There's no bedding. We can do that, but in a lot of cases they can. If they're going to shoot the CMP games, you can't have glass bedded guns unless you want to shoot in unlimited class, something like that with the M1. And most people don't want to do that. They want to shoot in the as issued matches and follow those rules, and that can make it much more tricky to accurize a rifle when you can't use bedding techniques, shimming, screws, in certain areas. It's much more challenging to make those guns shoot really well. And we actually, probably 5-6 years ago, did a redesign, I won't say a redesign, but a tweak on the Garand stock. and changed a little bit of the angle on how the receiver sits in it in order to comply with the match rules. We wanted to accurize this by doing the same thing as that betting accomplishes without betting, and changing the angle, the action, how it sits in the stock, and it worked, and it worked very, very well. And that was something like that can make a big difference when you're building these guns that have all these certain rules we got to go by. Is you're constantly trying to find a way that's within the rules, of course, to squeeze more out of it. So.
That's where you see all the wacky stuff, right? Is like when you've got the rules to work around.
Yeah.
You're not just making a race car gun. You're just
Right.
you gotta follow the rules. So it's like, well, why do you have this thing? You have to. Why?
Right. You have to have it, and it could even be detrimental for accuracy of the rifle. It would be the last thing that we would put in a national match rifle, but we can't do that with those as issued matches. But I think that's more challenging. We couldn't use betting, so we had to come up. What can we do to get more out of this, and started, changing things that would still stay within the rules. So, I won't say anybody could bet it and make it more accurate, but when we got to work around configuration rules like that and weight. The modern military rifle match, that's a relatively newer match at Camp Perry. That's a lot of fun. A lot of people enjoy that match and they shoot ARs in it and 14s. And we got it was a really low weight, maximum weight on allowable weight on those guns. So that got really challenging on how to make an accurate rifle that stay within those weight limits.
Anytime there's weight restrictions, man, light guns don't like to be accurate for a long time.
No, they don't. And no, to me that was very challenging, and I had a good time building those guns because we were just looking for ways to trim weight. It was kind of fun, to do that, and they did shoot well. I think we've won the match a couple times, so or at least our shooters have with our guns. So yeah, when we get into different things like that, that can be enjoyable. You may not have the craziest looking, latest, greatest thing, but there's still a lot inside of it. It's a sleeper, is what I call them. And
I think that stuff's pretty cool. I think that taking like an old, like whatever it is, and like making it the best that it can be is just a lot of fun. I don't know. Same with everything, right? Like the mini bikes and the snowmobiles and the whole, like everything. Just how fast is it? Not very, but it's a lot faster than it was.
Right, and so that and again, that's a different part. It's a different type of business too, where a lot of guys might just buy an aluminum stock, throw the action in. Not to say there's anything wrong with that if it works, but this is doing things where we have rules like that. Yeah, it's more challenging, I think, and it can lead to other innovations when you have to work with what you got. Sometimes I think.
Right. So, Rich, we're kind of running up on our time here, but what? Tell us real quick, just where to find you guys, where to find your list of services, and like what if you're looking for these things, like where your people. Give us a little rundown on that quick, and then how to get a hold of you, and we'll go from there.
Everything's online. So we've had a website since 1998. And it's www.fulton-armory.com. So that hyphen's got to be in there. I think we still own the domain without it, but our website has everything on it. We even put a lot of the prices on our website, which a lot of places don't do. Even for service, we do that. So there's a lot of information on there. Everything can be ordered off of there as well. We're a mail order only company. We have no retail. We have no distributors. We have no dealers. We don't have a dealer network. There's 7 of us here. A lot of people think this is a big factory with assembly lines and what they may expect out of other companies, but no, there's 7 of us, and everyone's very, very well trained, been here a long time. Very tight knit family type shop here that we run, and we do some amazing things. Awesome. And we're gonna continue to with awesome questions. So.
Yeah, when you start doing whatever it is that you were talking about coming out soon. We'll give it a little time, have you back on and talk about some of that stuff. I think we could. This was a good introduction into Fulton Armory.
Sure.
We should maybe have another show and focus more on the actual making them accurate and that kind of a thing.
There's a few secrets I'll share, but
yeah, I know you can't let it all out, but
no, I mean you pick which gun you want. I mean, that's the thing with us. We don't just do one. We don't just do vintage Garands or retro ARs. You know, we work on all those guns. There's days where all 4 of those guns will come across my bench, and even with some of the, you know, a couple of the other guys, they're multi-talented, I call them. When you can go from rebarreling a Garand to putting a float tube on a national match AR, you know, in the same hour. You know, I think that's a cool thing. It is. We're very lucky. We're blessed to be in this, to do it this way, and to still be in business through all these things. So
all the craziness of the world. Yeah. So anybody has any questions or comments for you specifically, are you okay with that?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
How do they get a hold of you?
Email is best, Rich, RICH at Fulton-Armory.com. I answer it multiple times a day. I pride myself in calling people back and replying to emails. I guarantee you I will do it. That's another one of those, that customer service that I think is so vital. And I can't stress that enough, that's part of what keeps this all going.
Awesome. So with that, everybody, man, check out Fulton Armory. Their website, it's cool. It's a little on the basic side, but I like it because it's easy to find what you're looking for. You go there and there's a list of things and you find what you want and you click the thing, and then there's another list of things and you click the next thing you want and you're done. Like, it's not, you know, there's not a ton of going on. It's not overwhelming because they have a large amount of stuff there. So if you're looking for anything, M1s, old service rifles like that, I'd check them out. It's just pretty cool. Questions or comments for me, Kirk at precisionriflemedia.com or precisionriflemedia.com. Click on the contact us section and that'll shoot me an email. Or if you want answers quick, it's Elise, ELYSE at precisionriflemedia.com. She's usually a little better at getting back quicker, like when I'm at work and stuff. And man, if you got, I guess that's, check out the Facebook, check out the Instagram. I'm trying to be a little more up on the Instagram, posting stuff over there, posting up shows, posting up that. If you got time, go comment and stuff on whatever your podcast, whatever you're listening on, Podbean, iTunes, whatever it is. Give us a rating or whatever. That'll help us out quite a bit. So with that, everybody, man, I appreciate you listening. Take care. Try to get to the range, and I'll talk to y'all next week. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.